Hello everyone, Omar is here. Right now you're looking at what might just be the ultimate setup for running classic operating systems like Windows NT4 on cutting-edge modern hardware. A while ago I showed Windows NT4 running smoothly on a modern Intel 14 Gen CPU and a DDR5 motherboard. Not bad for a 996 OS. But wait, it gets even better. Today we are not just running it on any storage device, we are booting Windows NT4 from a fast PCIe SSD. So stick around to find out why this even works and how you can do it yourself. And speaking of PCIe SSDs, guess what just landed in my hands? Well, some Samsung M.2 SSDs that are neither SATA nor NVMe. They are AHCI PCIe SSDs. And these drives have been on quite a journey, shipped all the way from Parramatta, Australia about a month ago. And here's the cool part, this whole thing happened because of David, one of my amazing subscribers who thought I could put these drives to good use. He was absolutely right because one of these SSDs is now happily running Windows NT4. And I have to point this out since these AHCI SSDs can be quite confusing, especially because the AHCI protocol is primarily associated with SATA drives, and some people might even swear you can't have one without the other, but that's not true. As you can see here, AHCI PCIe SSDs are a thing, but they were more common in the days of Windows 8 and early days of Windows 10. Now this kind of SSDs are harder to find. Why? Because PCIe SSDs are using the newer NVMe protocol, which is better suited for modern SSDs. AHCI, on the other hand, was originally designed for hard drives, not solid-state drives, but there is one big advantage. Using an older protocol gives you better compatibility, right? Well, yes, official AHCI support starts with Windows Vista, but as you are about to see, there are excellent backported AHCI drivers for Windows XP as well, and there is a third-party universal AHCI driver from the UniATA driver pack that works with all Windows NT versions. The only problem is that these drivers are not exactly easy to install. First, we don't have a floppy drive anymore, which means we can't load drivers in the initial setup phase. And even if we do have a floppy, UniATA might still fail to initialize our SSD during the installation. So we end up with that classic 07B blue screen. This is why usually I'm reusing a working installation of Windows NT with UniATA drivers already installed. Now to get Windows NT onto this PCIe SSD, I started by making a 2GB fat partition so I can boot into both DOS and Windows NT. Next, we gotta make this thing bootable. For Windows NT, we need, of course, NT-LDR, which is the old-school bootloader for every Windows NT version, right up until Windows Vista. To include DOS in the mix, I first ran the sys command. To put NT-LDR in charge, we've got a few options. We could use an emergency repair disk or a tool like bootset with the /NT52 switch. But another choice is to start the Windows NT setup from DOS. We don't actually need to go through the whole installation, which will fail to initialize our drive anyway. We just need to run the DOS setup phase, which takes about a minute or so if we remember to run a smart DRV before typing WinNT to start it up. During this process, the installation files are copied into two temporary folders, which can be deleted later. But what really matters is that after the DOS part ends, our partition is bootable and we get this handy multi-boot menu with both DOS and Windows NT boot options, as many as we want. And yes, it works. Now we are running Windows NT4 on a PCIe SSD, probably the fastest drive to ever boot Windows NT on real hardware. Now back to the installation process. I actually made the drive bootable by starting the Windows 2000 setup. This is the best approach since it gives us updated versions of NT-LDR and NT-Detect. And don't worry, these files work with every version of Windows NT, and newer versions are even better with newer hardware. Now back to our SSD. So far it clearly performs better than any SATA 3 drive. I mean, we're getting close to 800 megabytes write speeds, but that's nowhere near what we achieved under Windows XP, where speeds peaked at 2.2 gigabytes read and 1.6 gigabytes per second write. These are in fact the maximum specifications for the Samsung SM951 drive, so it can't get any better, but it can get worse in Windows NT. Initially, my installation used an older UniATA driver from 2019, which for some reason kept both read and write speeds at just 400 megabytes per second. With the latest 2021 driver, write speeds have doubled. There might be still room for some tweaking to unlock its full potential, but for now, this is the best performance we can get with UniATA. Anyway, when working with Windows NT, compatibility matters more than raw speed. And speaking of compatibility, what if you don't have a ready-to-go Windows NT4 installation with UniATA drivers already installed, like I did? Chances are you probably don't. My original setup was on a real hardware, but you can actually install NT4 in an emulator like PCem and add the UniATA AHCI drivers there. The process is straightforward. Just load the ISO image, boot from it, and everything will work without issues since the emulated IDE, CD-ROM, and the hard drive are fully compatible with NT4. Honestly, you can't get a more hassle-free setup than this. Plus, installing directly from the CD-ROM makes the whole process much easier. Once Windows NT is finally installed, we can add then the UniATA AHCI drivers like on a real PC. After that, we are free to use this installation on any AHCI SSD, whether it's SATA or PCIe, and that's really all there is to it. Oh, and one critical note, don't forget to upgrade to Service Pack 6, otherwise Windows NT won't boot on such modern hardware. As for transferring files from the virtual machine, one option is to clone the virtual hard drive onto a physical drive, but we won't get into this procedure today. One other option is to follow the steps I used to recycle my existing Windows NT installation. You just need a bootable drive and the WinNT folder from the virtual machine. To do this, simply attach the virtual hard drive using the disk management tool, locate the WinNT folder and copy it, then update the boot.ini file to point to this folder. One convenient feature of Windows NT is the ability to run multiple installations on a single partition. For example, to test this virtual machine installation with my Samsung AHCI PCIe drive, I copied the WinNT folder from PCem and renamed it to WinNTP, since the original WinNT folder was already hosting my active installation. After that, I updated the boot.ini file to point to the WinNTP folder, and it worked like charm. Now that we have integrated a M.2 PCIe drive into our Windows NT installation, in the next episode we are going to build an All-PCIe Express setup for Windows NT. We'll be reusing the same PCIe cards from our Windows 98 build, along with some exciting new additions. You might have already noticed that the Quadro FX 4500 works with Windows NT. Yes, it was a surprise. I'll show you how I did it. Now, thanks for watching. Stay tuned for the next episode where we perfect the ultimate All-PCIe Express setup for legacy systems. Omores out.